Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are diving into the absolutely fascinating neuroscience behind what your brain is actually doing, well, right this very second. We're going to explore this wild phenomenon that happens to literally all of us every single day. I'm talking about the wandering mind. By the end of this, you are going to have a completely new framework for understanding your own thoughts. So let's jump right in.
So I've got to ask, where is your mind right now? No, really, take a second. Because while you're taking in this information, there is a very good chance that a part of your brain has already just left the room. Maybe you just thought about what you're having for dinner, or replayed that super awkward interaction from 3 years ago, or you're wondering if you left the stove on. You didn't actively choose to think about any of that, right? It just happened. Scientists actually call this mind drift.
To understand just how massive of a phenomenon this is, we have to look at this famous Harvard study. They randomly pinged thousands of people throughout their day, just asking, hey, what are you thinking about right now? And the results were, frankly, staggering. Nearly 50% of the time, people's minds were wandering completely away from the task in front of them. Think about that for a second. Half of your entire waking life, your mind is running its own separate show, completely without your permission.
Now, this completely flipped our understanding of the brain totally upside down. See, for the longest time, the old assumption was that the brain worked kind of like a machine. You finish a task, and it just idles, like a car waiting at a red light. But when researchers started doing functional MRI scans, they discovered something incredibly strange. When people stopped doing a task and just rested inside the scanner, certain regions of their brain didn't go quiet at all. In fact, they absolutely lit up. Scientists name this the default mode network. It's an entire network of brain regions that becomes highly active exactly when we are at rest. And what this proves is absolutely mind-blowing. It means drifting is not some glitch in your system. Drifting is the baseline. Focus is actually the exception. Your brain's natural resting state isn't actually rest at all. It is wandering.
We usually assume a drifting mind is just, being lazy, taking a little break from reality. But honestly, the wandering brain is incredibly busy. It is constantly running these complex simulations. It's rehearsing future conversations or aggressively auditing past ones to see how you performed. It's quietly stitching together your memories, your worries, half-formed plans. Basically, it's producing this continuous, private, behind-the-scenes movie constantly, even while you're just standing there brushing your teeth. But here is where things get a little uncomfortable. That same Harvard study we talked about, they also asked people how happy they were when their minds drifted compared to when they were focused. And the conclusion was pretty stark. A wandering mind is an unhappy mind. People were measurably less happy when they were drifting, even if the task they were avoiding was just doing basic chores. Because left to its own devices, your brain doesn't naturally default to, pleasant, sunny memories. It leans heavily toward worry, regret, and unfinished business. So hearing that, you might be thinking it's time to wage an all-out war on your own wandering mind. But hold on, before you do, here's the twist that nobody expects. Mind drift is actually not the villain of this story. In fact, if we were to somehow totally eliminate it, we would lose something absolutely vital to our human experience.
As it turns out, mind wandering is the secret engine of breakthroughs, seriously. Some of the most brilliant ideas in human history were born in exactly this drifting state. I mean, it's the exact reason your absolute best ideas always seem to hit you when you're in the shower or out on a long walk. In those moments of physical autopilot, your hands are busy, but your mind is completely unchained. It's free to drift, which allows distant, entirely unrelated ideas to quietly bump into each other and combine into something totally new.
And this isn't just a theory. Psychologists have actually tested this. They gave people a deliberately boring task, specifically designed to trigger mind wandering, and then tested their creativity immediately afterward. And the results are just striking. The folks who were allowed to let their minds drift consistently outperformed the people who were forced to stay locked on to a highly demanding, focused task. So the drifting brain isn't wasting time at all. It's doing work you literally cannot force. It's work that only happens when you stop trying so hard to focus. Okay, so now we are left with this really fascinating paradox, right? The wandering mind makes you unfocused and unhappy, yet it is also the engine behind your most creative breakthroughs. So how can it be both? Well, the crucial difference here is awareness. There is a massive, game-changing gap between mind wandering that just sort of happens to you and mind wandering that you actually notice happening. Let's look at the two very distinct experiences of a wandering mind. First, you have unnoticed drifting. This is when you are totally lost in this draining loop of worry that you didn't even choose to enter, and honestly, you have no idea you're even doing it. But then on the flip side, we have notice drifting. Meditation researchers have actually found that people who practice paying attention to their own attention, catching themselves the exact moment they drift and gently bringing themselves back, report far higher levels of well-being. So it isn't the drifting itself that makes you unhappy, it's drifting without realizing you've sort of checked out.
And look, this isn't just some abstract idea. It has real physical consequences. Think about highway hypnosis. We've all been there. It's that eerie, kind of scary moment you realize you've just driven 10 miles on absolute autopilot, and you can't remember a single second of it. Your body kept the car in the lane, but your mind was entirely gone. Studies show mind wandering is actually a huge factor in driving accidents. It's a slightly terrifying everyday reminder of just how much of life we experience while only being half present.
So what do we actually do with all this information? Well, the goal is to cultivate a noticing mind. You are never, ever going to eliminate mind wandering. We just saw it's wired into the very architecture of your brain, but you can completely change your relationship with it. The goal isn't to have an empty mind. It's simply catching the drift. That split second of realizing, oh, hey, I've been replaying that old argument again. That is not a failure. Actually, scratch that. It's a huge win. It's a rare, incredibly powerful skill that puts you right back in the driver's seat of your own head. So I'll leave you with this. Do you notice when your mind leaves? Just mentally add up all the moments your mind has drifted away today, or this week, or even this year. All that time spent replaying the past or stressing over outcomes you literally cannot control. Now imagine getting even a fraction of those minutes back. Not to think less, but to actually be fully present for the life happening right in front of you. Because your mind is always going to drift, for sure. The only real question is whether you notice you've left and how long it takes you to come back. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer today. Keep noticing where your mind goes, and I'll see you next time.